could really handle the ball pretty well even at that young age. So you kind of thought to yourself, she needs a little bit more than this recreation.
Clark's first coach was her dad, and the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree in the Clark family.
Whether you're the president of the United States or some other high-profile person, there's about 50% lined up against you and 50% lined up for you.
Imagine being 4 years old and swishing free throws like they're nothing. That's exactly what Caitlin Clark was doing, according to her dad. How does a toddler become a basketball prodigy? Let's find out. Meet Brent Clark, Caitlin's dad, and our guide through this wild journey. He's not just any dad. He's the one who first saw that special spark in his little girl. Picture this. Tiny Caitlin, barely taller than a basketball, practicing for hours every day. Her dad says she was different from other kids. She had this crazy focus and determination. You know what's even crazier? This was just the beginning. Caitlin's early talent was like a preview of the basketball rock star she'd become. But the road ahead wasn't easy. How did this little free throw phenom handle the pressure as she grew up? That's what we're going to talk about next. Think free throws at 4 were impressive? Caitlin's next move shocked everyone. As she hit the high school courts, her game exploded. But here's the kicker. Her family's sacrifices were just as jaw-dropping as her skills. What exactly did it take to turn this backyard baller into a national phenomenon? Let's talk about Caitlin's journey from the backyard to the big leagues. It wasn't just about her skills growing. It was about her whole family coming together to make her dreams happen. Imagine this. Caitlin's parents, Brent and Ann, never missed a single game. That's dedication, right? But it wasn't all cheers and high fives. Brent, Caitlin's dad, knows a thing or two about basketball. He played in college, so he gets it. He saw that same fire in Caitlin that he had back in the day. But watching your kid compete at higher and higher levels? That's a whole different ballgame. Brent says it was nerve-wracking. Can you picture it? Your heart racing every time she takes a shot, every time she goes for a steal? But here's where it gets real. As Caitlin's skills skyrocketed, so did the demands on her family. We're talking travel, time, and yeah, probably a whole lot of money too. It wasn't just Caitlin making sacrifices. It was the whole Clark clan. You know what's wild? While most kids were hanging out with friends or binge-watching Netflix, Caitlin was in the gym. Hours and hours of practice day after day. That's the kind of dedication it takes to go from good to great. And great to, well, rock star status. But let's not forget about Brent and Ann. They weren't just cheerleaders on the sidelines. They were Caitlin's support system, her biggest fans, and probably her toughest critics too. It's like they were on this roller coaster ride with her, feeling every up and down.
Clark's first coach was her dad, and the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree in the Clark family.
Brent says one thing he couldn't do is shoot from the logo like Caitlin. Caitlin Clark's dad, Brent, knew his daughter as early as 4 years old had a special skill.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, but when did everyone else start noticing? Good question. There wasn't just one moment. It was more like a series of jaw-dropping performances. Game after game, Caitlin was putting up numbers that made people do a double take. And word started to spread. Coaches were whispering. Scouts were showing up. And suddenly, this girl from Iowa was the talk of the basketball world. But you know what's really impressive? Through all of this, Caitlin stayed Caitlin. No big head, no diva attitude. Just a kid who loves the game, backed by a family who'd do anything to support her dreams. As Caitlin's star rose, so did the challenges. Imagine going from shooting hoops in your backyard to having your face plastered all over social media. Sounds amazing, right? Well, there's a side to fame that nobody talks about. Caitlin Clark's journey to basketball stardom wasn't all smooth sailing. Sure, she was sinking free throws at 4 and dominating high school courts, but with great talent comes great pressure. And let me tell you, the pressure was on. Think about it. One day, you're just a kid who loves basketball. The next, you're all over ESPN and everyone's got an opinion about you. That's what happened to Caitlin. Her dad, Brent, saw it firsthand. He says, "There's always somebody who wants to see you fall." Ouch, right? That's the harsh reality of being in the spotlight. Social media, it's a whole different ballgame. Every shot, every move, every word Caitlin says, it's all out there for millions to see and judge. Can you imagine trying to focus on your game when your phone's blowing up with notifications? It's like playing with a crowd of thousands right in your pocket. But here's where it gets real. Caitlin's not just dealing with fans and followers. She's got critics, doubters, and people who'd love to see her mess up. It's like having a target on your back every time you step on the court. One bad game, and suddenly everyone's got something to say. So how does Caitlin handle all this? Well, she's got a secret weapon, her family. Brent and the rest of the Clark clan are all about keeping things normal. When Caitlin's not on the court, they're just like any other family. Movie nights, family dinners, the usual stuff. It's their way of giving Caitlin a break from being Caitlin Clark basketball sensation.
I don't recall that she'd ever miss a shot. You know, the baskets are probably at 5 feet or 6 feet, but, you know, she'd just pull up from the free throw line, swish. You know, I'd like to see her work on a little bit more, but all in all, that's really what drives her and makes her the player that she is. Could really handle the ball pretty well even at that young age, so you kind of thought to yourself, she needs a little bit more than this recreation.
But it's not just about staying grounded. Caitlin's had to learn some tough lessons about life in the spotlight. Her dad's been there to guide her, sharing strategies on how to navigate the craziness of fame. It's like learning a whole new game, but instead of X's and O's, it's about handling interviews, dealing with criticism, and staying true to yourself. You know what's really impressive? How Caitlin's grown through all this. The pressure, the scrutiny, the expectations. They haven't broken her. Instead, they've made her stronger. She's not just a better player. She's become more resilient as a person. It's like she's taken all that pressure and turned it into fuel for her game. Now let's talk about what happens when Caitlin steps onto the court. Ever seen a player who can score from practically anywhere? I'm talking way beyond the three-point line. It's like she's got cheat codes for basketball. Caitlin Clark's got this crazy ability to shoot from logo distance. That's not just impressive, it's game-changing. Most players dream of hitting threes consistently, but Caitlin? She's out here making shots that look like they're from another zip code. Her dad, Brent, puts it in perspective. He says, "One thing he couldn't do is shoot from the logo like Caitlin. That's coming from a guy who played college ball himself. When your own dad's jaw is dropping, you know you're doing something special. But it's not just about how far she can shoot, it's the confidence she brings to the game. Caitlin's not afraid to take those deep shots, and that puts defenses in a tough spot.
Deep and not necessary, but, you know, that's what she enjoys doing, and, you know, I think it's unique for the sport, and I think it helps change the game. Got to stay away from sometimes the social media. There's always somebody who's going to want to see you fall. Whether you're the President of the United States or some other high-profile person, there's about 50% lined up against you and 50% lined up for you.
How do you guard someone who's a threat as soon as she crosses half court? You'd think with all this hype, Caitlin might get a big head. But her dad says she's still hungry to improve. He wants to see her work on both sides of the court. That's the kind of attitude that turns great players into legends. Now, let's talk about the Caitlin Clark effect. You should see the crowds at her games. It's not just basketball fans, it's little girls with Caitlin Clark signs dreaming of being the next big thing. Her dad sees it firsthand, and it's something special. Brent talks about these moments after games. He says, "When you see your sign and give it to a little girl, that is pretty cool. It's more than just basketball at this point. Caitlin's showing a whole generation of girls what's possible." Think about it. How many kids get to see someone like them dominating at the highest level? Caitlin's not just playing the game, she's changing it. She's giving young players someone to look up to, someone to emulate. And here's the kicker, she's just getting started. With room to grow and a drive to keep improving, who knows what Caitlin Clark will do next? One thing's for sure, the basketball world is watching and they can't look away. So we've seen Caitlin's journey from a little kid sinking free throws to a college superstar dealing with fame. It's been wild, right? But you know what's even cooler? How her dad, Brent, sees it all. Brent's like, watching her achieve her dreams is the most rewarding thing. Can you imagine being in his shoes? Seeing your kid light up courts across the country? He also sees a lot of himself in Caitlin, especially that burning passion for basketball. But here's the real kicker. Caitlin's not just changing the game, she's inspiring a whole new generation. Think about all those little girls watching her play, dreaming of being the next Caitlin Clark. She's showing them what's possible, pushing the boundaries of women's basketball. And you know what? This is just the beginning. Who knows what Caitlin will do next?